No secrets left to conceal. Athletes have laced up against one another all summer long, and now it's time for past losses to be revenged and yearly rankings to be locked in. Today, the best on the roads in 99 meet in Cape Elizabeth, Maine for the second running of Joni's race, otherwise known as the People's Beach to Beacon 10K. Today on the New Balance Race of the Month. The New Balance Race of the Month is brought to you by New Balance. Performance athletic shoes. Achieve New Balance. Well, welcome to Cape Elizabeth, Maine. I'm Tony Revis, along with my partner Ed Eyestone. And there's Joan Samuelson, who inaugurated this race last year. And what a super race it was back then. It'll be hard to duplicate this year, Ed.
Well, it was a beautiful race last year with three Africans coming in, duking it out tooth and nail all the way through the finish, and South African Johannes Mabitle coming strong on the outside, stealing the race from two Kenyans. It's going to be tough to have a tight finish like that again this year.
Well, Mabitle set his personal best by 24 seconds. He is back.
Course record time, 28:15 was Johannes' time last year.
And it's a rolling 10-kilometer course with the longer downhills and short little uphills near the end of the race. Now, two men who are with us this year who could not be with us last year are the man right in front there, Khalid Khannouchi, who is right on track to go Road Racer of the Year again, as he did last year, as we take a little look at the course map on Cape Elizabeth, Maine. Starts near Crescent Beach and then rolls through 6.2 miles all the way to Fort Williams Park and the Portland Headlight Lighthouse.
This is not a fast course. 28:18 that Johannes ran last year was a very good time on this course with the hills. Very taxing course. And there, closest to the camera with the red wristband, we see Joseph Kimani, another person who was not here last year but could be a real factor today.
Back behind him is Todd Williams, the top American, or one of the top 4 or 5 Americans in the field. And on the far right, Johannes Mabitle, our defending champion, who hung back and made some surges last year and ran an odd race, but it worked for him.
Mabitle was just trying to get on the inside there. Sometimes you get out on the gravel side of the road trying to get on. But Joseph Kimani setting the firm early pace. Kimani was a real dominant figure in American road racing. 96, 97 was just having his way with everything. And then Khalid Khannouchi was tired of getting beat by him and came on real strong that year.
Well, he was motivated by Kimani, upped his training and finally beat him at the Big 7 road race in 1997 for the Pro Road Championship and hasn't lost to him since. Kimani's had some small back pains and hasn't been quite the man he was in 96 and 97, but he's been rolling back into form, finishing 4th at Peachtree and 2nd and 3rd at some other races as well. Now our first look at the women, led by Ndereba.
Ndereba wearing the sunglasses out in front where she likes to be. She is our defending champion, having won last year in a time of 32:15. Very close race last year with battling Helen Kamayo-Kipkosgei and Libby Hickman. But Catherine was able to use that speed that she has towards the end to overcome Helen Kamayo's serious late challenge and win the race.
Well, it was just like the men's race, 3 abreast coming to the line, and that's why everyone said, my God, Joan, you just ought to quit after year 1. You had such a spectacular finish on both races. Why try again?
Right. Anytime you have 3 people sprinting for the finish, just in one event, it's incredible to have it in both the men's and women's side. Equally incredible. But that's just a testament to Joni, the great fields that she can bring out because of her stature. Everyone loves Joni. Everyone wants to come to her race.
Olga Markova, who's got something in common with Joan, being a 2-time winner of the Boston Marathon, who's just given birth last year to a daughter, now is coming back on form. There's a look at our course record times. Khannouchi continues to sort of be the focal point of the pack, except for Kimani, who's sort of running on one side and a little bit up front. That's Ngusa Urge from Ethiopia, number 14. The man with his hand up in the air asking to go to the bathroom, I would assume, as we look at the 1-mile split, is Abraham Asapa, another one of the Ethiopians.
And Terrence Mahan also in that pack. It's good to see an American up there wearing the sunglasses. But Kimani setting the early pace. I don't know if he had this in mind or not, but it looks as if no one wants to pass him, and so he is content. He is a front runner.
If we looked at 96 and 97, his dominant period, he would go easy for the first mile and then apply enormous pressure in miles 2 and 3, break open to a huge lead and never be headed again and win by 40 or 50 seconds in a 6-mile run, which was unheard of at the time. And he looks as smooth and elegant and graceful as he ever has.
And shadowing Kimani is Abraham Asifa from Ethiopia. Was 8th at Peachtree, 8th at Utica, and then of Khalid Khannouchi. So a very good field, and all the players are right there in position.
Well, we do have 3 Americans in this field, and the crowd is probably going to cheer them on. Terrence Mahan. We also have Todd Williams, who's been like the #1 guy on the roads as we go back to the women's competition with Catherine Ndereba. Another one of the Ethiopians is right next to her. That's Asha Gigi, one of the people who, when they come over, the Ethiopians do very well. She was 2nd at the Boulder and 2nd at the Steamboat Classic in Peoria. Since that time, she has gone back to 8th at Utica and 12th at Peachtree. They lose something. We have Kenyans, we have Americans, we have Chinese, Ethiopians, a full international field here at the People's Beach to Beacon. Brought to you by New Balance Performance Athletic Shoes. Achieve New Balance. And by People's Heritage Bank, the Bank of Maine. Back at the People's Beach to Beacon 10K in Cape Elizabeth, Maine on the New Balance Race of the Month. On a 65-degree day, and the humidity is a little bit high as we now look into the 2nd mile. Joseph Kimani starting to stretch this lead. What do we make of it?
Well, Kimani's had some back problems. Hasn't been the near as dominant factor as he's been in 96 and 97, but he's looking like the Kimani of old right now, and he's just determined to stretch things out. If the guys aren't going to follow him, he's going to work on that lead, and he's extended to about a 50-meter lead. Here we can see Kimani when he was in his prime, running the world record, Peachtree Road Race, 27:04, and that is an incredible time. That same year, back in 96, we saw him run the world record for 12K at the Arts Festival Road Race. An amazing athlete, but since then he's had some back spasms that's really slowed him down.
You know who was the same sort of situation was Benson Masha from Kenya, who was the 1994 Road Racer of the Year. He ran off 12 straight race victories from the marathons all the way down to the 10Ks. He also got a bad back, and that just completely ended his run of dominance.
Well, a very talented chase pack with Khannouchi, Kiptum, Kabiga, and Asefa, all of them working together. And when you have a chase pack and you've got 4 talented people, you don't get that nervous about that guy getting away from you. And right now, Kimani only has about 40 meters, and any one of those guys, particularly Khannouchi, I think if they needed to, could close that distance.
Well, 2 years ago, this race would be over. Right now, we have to wonder as we look at the very tightly knit women's pack, including Gwen Coogan, U.S. Olympian, returning to form.
Well, since I missed about a year of racing with having my baby Margaret, I thought that it would be best for me to just go out and race as many races as I can, then take a little time off in the fall and start my marathon build-up and just do a lot of running. Marathon build-ups are boring. You just run and run and run, and I don't race much when I'm doing a marathon build-up. I just go out in the trails and run, and then I'll pop back out on the scene for my marathon.
Well, Gwenny wasn't sure she was going to be running here because this is the weekend that they were going to be moving back from Boulder, Colorado, back to Maryland. She has taken a position as a professor, going to be teaching math come fall at Hood College there, and so she left the final cleaning and packing to her husband, Mark Coogan, who is also an Olympian, and I'm sure she was just disappointed she couldn't be there cleaning the house and driving cross-country with Mark.
Well, she's making up for it because she's right in the hunt on the women's competition. We haven't seen her for a year since she's had her baby. A lot of the women have had babies at this point. Now, Khalid Khannouchi, like you mentioned, has made it a surge away from William Kiptum in the yellow and Abraham Asafa, the Ethiopian, is now trying to bridge up to Kimani. This is a crucial part of the race.
Well, Khannouchi has not raced since Peachtree. He's being a little more selective with his races since he's been nursing a little bit of a Achilles tendon injury, but now he knows that he's got to close that gap because Kimani is too talented to let him all on his own.
13:20 at 3 miles. They are 22 seconds faster than they were last year. That sub 28-minute pace. Can they hold it? We'll see when we return. Welcome back to the second annual People's Beach to Beacon 10K on Cape Elizabeth, Maine. The race that Olympic gold medalist Joan Samuelson inaugurated last year with such great success. And this year we have a breakaway candidate in Joseph Kimani from Kenya, who's living and training out of the Boston area. But the man chasing him is Khalid Khannouchi with a little look over his shoulder. That's the wrong way to be looking at.
Well, we have the hunter and the hunted at this point, and there's the hunter in Khannouchi. I think he realized that we were getting close to 4 miles and he needs to close that gap, and he has closed that gap quite quickly, as a matter of fact. And now it just comes down, when you're leading a race and have broken a race open like that, it's a very kind of demoralizing feeling when suddenly you hear the footfalls of the person closing in on you.
Kimani has not looked back once the entire way, just running his own pace. I think he's settled in a little bit more. He doesn't look like he's pushing, and he may not know that somebody's coming, but I don't think he'll be surprised when all of a sudden he starts hearing those footsteps, even though the crowd isn't telling him very much.
Well, you could get little subtle cues from the crowd, and I think as he's getting closer, he hears the foot strikes, he hears the clapping of the crowd, and at this point, he definitely knows that Khannouchi is with him.
The women still very densely packed. Asha Gigi is right in there as part of that lead pack. Also born and raised in the Arsi province of Ethiopia, where all the great runners of Ethiopia come from. I mean, one town there is at 4,000 meters. That's 13,200 feet. And great to see Gwen Coogan back on form. You know, going for her PhD and doing her dissertation, having the baby last year. Running just was not her #1 priority, but it looks like she is the Gwen Coogan of old who made the Olympic team in '96 as a marathoner.
Well, and here's our Olympic champion, Durartu Tulu, the first African woman to win a gold medal. In '92, she won the 10,000 meters.
And then was 4th in defense of that crown in Atlanta, but she is going to go to Sydney as a marathon runner. And right now, we now have a two-man race. And now, what's going through both these men's mind is a hit 4 miles in 17:53, which was still well under the pace they set last year when the final time was 28:18.
Well, when you get caught in a race like this, you're just hoping that you can kind of rekindle things, that maybe you can relax, and hopefully the person that's caught you will settle in on your same pace. And that looks like that's what Khannouchi's doing right now as they run shoulder to shoulder. And Kimani, I think, it just wants to kind of take a breath, kind of rekindle some strength there, and then be ready for Khannouchi when he makes that final burst.
Well, they are 33 seconds under last year's course record pace on an ideal day for racing, with a couple of guys who know a thing or two about racing on the roads. Jane Gotho leads the way on the women's side. Now Durartu Tulu has fallen off the back in this, her last competition, before going back to Ethiopia. But our favorite, Catherine Ndereba, on the other side of Wanjiku, she doesn't like the breakaway.
I like to run with the competition. You know, when you are running by yourself, you can go slow, and maybe even you shit yourself that, oh, I'm going very fast, because you are just alone. But when you have got a competition, it has much a lot.
Well, what we're finally seeing is the competitive fields now mean that the women are running in a pack as well as the men. I like to see that. Competition on both sides.
Well, actually, the men are just running in a duo. The women have the pack, and it's Khannouchi and Kimani. You say Khannouchi, I say Kimani.
And look how relaxed Kimani is in the face. He's just bouncing along. Looks effortless.
In this month's New Balance in Action, we look at the breakthrough race by Khalid Khannouchi in finally beating Joseph Kimani at 1997's Quad City Times Big 7 road race. Kimani had beat him in Peachtree just 3 weeks earlier. Khannouchi went home and piled on the mileage, came back to the Steamboat Classic, won there, and has been unbeatable since.
I love to race with Kimani. He's been my favorite opponent, you know. It gave me also confidence racing with him. Like you said, since 1997, since Big 7, I've been successful. It's like I put too much hard work, and I planned, me and my wife, what we want to do, so we were successful.
Well, here is Mr. Khannouchi in his prime at the Peachtree Road Race, defending his title. He's won the last 2 years and set his personal best this year in 27 minutes and 45 seconds.
And as I said earlier, he's been nursing an Achilles injury, and so he's been ever so judicious in the selection of his races, and he's running very well today.
That's this month's New Balance in Action. Olga Markova on the far right from Russia. A couple of Kenyans in between, Jane and Gotho, 64, and 65, Teresa Wanjiku. With a quick look over at Catherine Ndereba in the sunglasses, you got to wonder when she's going to become vulnerable. She was dominant in 96, had the baby in 97, dominant in 98, 8 victories in 99.
And Teresa Wanjiku, number 65, the training companion to Catherine Ndereba, looking for her first big win.
See if she can do it after this. Back on the New Balance Race of the Month. 15 years ago, Joan Benoit ran the perfect race to capture the inaugural Women's Olympic Marathon in Los Angeles. Then last August, she decided to stage a race on her own training loop. Who knew it would be another perfect effort?
Last year I said it will never happen again. We'll never have the weather and as close a finish as we had last year. But with all the defending champions back and with the new additions this year, I think we've topped it. I mean, the field is just incredible, and I'm honored that all these athletes have come to Maine to run.
I respect Joni more than probably any other runner in the world and what she did for the sport, so if I'm in shape or I'm out of shape, I'm coming up to run if she asks me to.
Last year I feel bad because I couldn't make it, but I promised Johnny that I will make it this year, and I'm so happy that I'm part of this event.
Joan Benoit Samuelson is a magnet for running. There's no getting around it. Even my mother, who never reads the sports page, knows that Joan Benoit won the gold medal.
And just a week before this race, the 25th anniversary of the Quad City Times Big 7 race in Davenport, Iowa, a bronze statue was unveiled of Bill Rogers and Joan Samuelson, two of the runners most responsible for the success of that event. And it's certainly a fitting tribute to the king and queen of road racing, and a great tribute to Joan specifically to have the phenomenal athletes gathered for this particular race.
Now, Khannouchi edging ahead of Kimani. With a little look over his shoulder, this is when the pressure is being applied, and he is definitely breaking away, and Kimani's not answering. 4.5 miles into it. The women still 4 abreast. Catherine Ndereba on the far right, Wanjiku, training partner, Jane and Gotho, and Olga Markova, who also had a baby last year and had really been off form after winning in the early 90s the Boston Marathon 2 times. It's great to see her back.
Olga has come back stronger than ever after giving birth to her daughter. And now we can see that Khannouchi is really using the hilly section of this course to open up on Kimani. I'm afraid Kimani has stuck around for as long as he can, and Khannouchi now has really lowered the boom.
And now it's a matter of how fast and how far under the course record can he go. Tremendous confidence in this young man, who last year ran a 2:7:19 in the Chicago Marathon in only a second effort. He ran 2:7:10 the year before, winning the race. So that's where he got his Achilles tendon injury, and he sort of nursed it along throughout the year. But when he is on, he's almost unbeatable.
And it's still a 4-woman race, and if you have to discount anyone in there, I would say probably Olga Markova, the marathon runner, probably not having the wheels, the finishing speed as the other 3.
But Jane and Gotho, at age 29, has a personal best of 32:10, but she's only been 6th, and 5th in her last 3 races. It's Ndereba with 8 race victories, who looks, just by her arms, to be just very much at ease and just waiting to the end.
Well, and she's looking around. She has her 2 key opponents right in front of her, and I think she's just biding her time. She's very confident about her finishing speed. She's outkicked ladies in the past, and I think that's what she's waiting to do right now.
Women also under the course record paces. Now it's Khalid Khannouchi into Fort Williams Park, flying home for the victory. He ran his personal best July 4th at the Peachtree Road Race, 27:45. Now he's trying to see if he can match that.
And Kimani is nowhere to be seen. Khannouchi has literally blown him off the course over the last 2 miles.
Khalid Khannouchi.
He's going to break 28 minutes, Tony.
Well, the course record, 28:18, going to fall by a big margin. Khannouchi hits the tape, 27:48 unofficially. A great last 2 miles.
A super performance, and the fact that he had Kimani to work with over that first 4.5 miles certainly pushed him on to that course record time.
And here is Kimani himself, right at last year's winning time, just over 28:19. William Kiptum third for the second straight year.
Kiptum came up strong, practically caught Kimani over that last mile.
Abraham Asafa from Ethiopia and on Abel Andale, another one of the Kenyans. That's the best race he's had all season long. And now Johannes Mabitle in sixth place, our defending champion.
Johannes Mabitle from South Africa. Very fast time. Johannes Mabitle at the finish line now.
Well, it looked like road racing of old with Joseph Kimani out front and you trying to chase him. What happened when he got that? When did you decide you had to go get him?
I decided after 3 mile mark, I pay attention to time. I saw that we were running fast, so I said this is the opportunity to run at least a PRRO course record. So I decided to follow him.
Well, here's a look at our scoreboard. Who knows how fast they can run on this course? I mean, John Career, who won the Bix race, was not here. There are a couple of other guys. They could still put a field together. Could best that time as Todd Williams is the first American in 9th place.
And Todd's getting ready for Chicago. He's putting in some high miles. He had about 120 miles this week, so a good effort for him.
We'll bring the women home right after this timeout. Welcome back to the New Balance Race of the Month, brought to you by New Balance Performance Athletic Shoes. Achieve New Balance. And by People's Heritage Bank, the Bank of Maine. Well, we have brought in our men's champion on the course record time, Olga Markova from Russia. Two-time Boston Marathon champion from the early 90s continues not to go away. But now, rather than running abreast and running in back, Ndereba has gone to the point and strung these athletes out at a very telling race moment.
When you see the top athlete go to the front like this, it means she is serious. And Ndereba now is putting the hammer down, and we'll see how much she can stretch this pack out at this point.
It's almost like an instant replay. This is the way she wins almost all her races. We asked her how she stays motivated through this long season.
If there is a race tomorrow, I just know I've got a tough day. I just put it in mind that it's a tough day. It's like when you are doing your speed work, you have to focus your mind that today I've got a tough day for speed work. You know, it's not the same like when you are going for a long run or something else.
Well, it may be a tough day for Ndereba, but it's a tougher day for the ladies who try to run against her.
Well, now they're in the final stretches in Fort Williams Park, and this is where there was that great three-woman race last year, and Catherine came up on top. And well, there is Steve Placentia, third place in the Masters competition, who set the American Masters record last year in this race, since beaten by John Tuttle. But now back to the women. Ndereba checks out and see where Wanjiku and Ngotho are, and then drops into another gear. And Wanjiku's just tough as nail, and Ngotho looks like she's had it all.
Well, Wanjiku's been training with Ndereba, so I've got to think that Wanjiku's confidence has got to be there. And as they sprint for the finish, Wanjiku is hanging tough. Ndereba fighting all the way through. 1 second difference between the two. Great race by both.
If 1 second, and they too set a new course record. 32:05, 10 seconds under the old mark.
And perhaps with Wanjiku, finally we have found someone who can push Catherine Ndereba.
Push her, but as of yet, not beat her. Ngotho in third, Olga Markova tuckered in fourth, but she ran a great race. And then in seventh place, American Gwyn Coogan in 32:46. It's great to see her back on form.